I have over 500 plugins on my computer, and yet every single time I open Ableton, I load the same 3 plugins. Every time. I used to think the problem is that I didn't have the right plugin, so I kept buying more and more. Most plugins that I own are from recommendations or from YouTube videos that I saw, and I thought, okay, I need this plugin too. Sometimes I waited for a sale and then bought it, and I think many of you know it. If there's a plugin on a very good sale, like 80-90% off, it feels stupid to not buy it. And I think many of you can relate with this way of thinking that better to download a plugin, to have it and to not use it, than to have to use it and you don't own it. So for some plugins that I bought, I just thought to myself, I figure out how to use it later. For me, when buying new plugins, the first few days that I own it, I use it all the time. I figure out new things. But then after a week or two, I just come back to my old plugins and use them and don't really touch this new one anymore for that often. Many of these plugins I've opened maybe once or twice, but especially the free ones that I just downloaded because I thought, yeah, better to have it, I probably opened one time and then never touched it again. And my key point is not that you shouldn't buy any plugins, that you should only use stock plugins, but the way of buying plugins without any real strategy, with having plugins that overlap entirely, that's just not something that has helped me so much. When I open Ableton and I want to make a new sample or a new beat, I just scroll to my instruments folder with my instrument plugins, and most of the time I click on Analog Lab or Omnisphere, sometimes Serum, and that's it. And I know that with those plugins you can do very much and you can do a lot, but having all those other plugins, it sometimes just feels frustrating to only use those and to barely touch the other ones. And it's not that I can't start making a beat or something or that I feel uninspired, but it's just the same workflow over and over again. And what happened with that is every few weeks I'm like switching out one of those plugins. So for some time that I made a lot of these swag beats and swag samples, I used the Korg Triton a lot and Serum not really. And that has helped me get a bit of variation and to not have everything that I make sound the same. But as I said, for those phases of some weeks, the things are pretty similar. And the funny thing is, this is actually a psychological effect called the paradox of choice. The more options you have, the less likely you are to make a genuinely free decision out of your own free will and more likely to do what you used to do all the time. And that's exactly what happens. If you open this browser with plugins, with like so many of those different plugins that all do different things, your brain can't really process it and likes to go back to the familiar ones that you already know what they do. And I know what you're thinking. Maybe just delete some plugins, just force yourself to use different ones, and I've tried that. And the result is different, and it feels different to just use stock plugins, for example. But to be honest, it feels a little like you're handicapped. You can't really do everything that you want to do in the same way that you used to do it. If you're very used to using stock plugins, of course, you have like practice in that, and you can do a lot with that. But if you've used those plugins that stretch way beyond what stock plugins can do, and then you go back, of course, you feel handicapped. But something weird happens when you remove all this scrolling and you start maybe using only stock plugins for a session. You have to start deciding, because if you have like 20 synthesizer plugins, you maybe think, oh, this one sounds better, oh, let me try this other one. But for stock plugins, you don't have 20, 30 synthesizer plugins, you maybe have 2. Maybe you have like a wavetable synthesizer and an FM synthesizer, and that's it. And you have to make it work with these limitations. I have to be honest, my beats, I did some experiments, I did some beats with only stock plugins. They didn't sound quite that good, and they weren't close to my beats that I did with all those plugins that I paid for, that I used for many years. And of course, the result when using these limitations, when only using stock plugins, when deleting some of your favorite plugins, the result first is not that good. But it is more intentional because you can't swap out anything all the time, because you have to force yourself to make that decision to finish it without those expensive plugins. And doing that also improved my beats when using all those plugins again. I'm not going to tell you to go and delete all your expensive plugins to just go back to stock plugins. That's not the point of this video. But think to yourself, when opening a plugin, why have I opened this plugin? Did I just randomly come across it? Did I just click on it and thought, yeah, maybe in this plugin there could be a sound that I can use? Or did you have a sound in your head and you thought, with this plugin I can make that sound? And having a lot of plugins is not something bad. It can help you a lot if you use everything for one specific purpose, but having overlapping plugins and just always using the same ones can be really frustrating. And I've also read about this idea of writing down your plugins that you use in every session, like in a physical notebook or in your notes app on your phone. And after a week, you check which plugins have I used a lot and which have I not used at all. And for those plugins that you haven't used, just watch some tutorials, just look what they can do, because when you know all the things that a plugin can do, you have more joy creating with it and you will use it more. Let me know how many plugins you own and if you have made similar experiences with that. And until then, see you in the next video.